I, Sasha, want to talk about women at midlife and how important our wisdom is for the times that we're going into. So, in astrology, you may know that there's these initiations that happen at these different thresholds. The first one happens at around 40 or 42. The second one happens around 50 or 52. And the last one happens around 58. Each of these have a different quality. Each of them are turning us towards our deeper wisdom. It's really the culmination of all of our lived experience, the cultivation of what we came here to do in what I call the pursuit of our sacred mission. I've been thinking about this a lot lately in relationship to this particular Venus cycle that we're in. Of course, Venus is about the feminine and the return of the feminine energy as an energy that leads without being masculine. It's like this new frequency that is part of the evolution of the now. I call that the solar feminine because it's a dance between Venus and the sun in a pattern in the sky that really creates a heartbeat, really creates a rhythm. And so there's motion there, there's light, there's embodiment, there's something about it that feels like it's cutting edge. And of course, we're living through this time where we are on the cutting edge, the evolutionary edge. Part of what we're waking up to in this time is the level of distortions and inversions that we've been fed by our conditioning. One of the reasons that I've been so enchanted with the Venus cycle as a heroine's journey is because it's this natural, elegant way to help us to deconstruct that conditioning and to come deeper into our true self, come deeper into our soul. I feel like the doorway to that is through our heart. And Venus represents the heart, the sun represents the heart. And together they're really this opportunity to move in a rhythm that has to do with this care and connection. It's like moving with nature, learning how to do that. We're so estranged from our ancestors that knew the natural ways, that were indigenous in whatever land that they lived in and had this intimacy with nature. And so we're at a time now where the return to that is clearly critical because we see what's coming with the digitalization and the disembodiment and the disassociation that technology can bring if we go down that one path, or this potential of humans to really awaken if we go down the organic timeline. And so that's becoming more and more clear as it will as we go deeper and deeper into this age of Aquarius. So I was doing this time travel through this current cycle that we're in that began mid-August of 2023 in the sign of Leo, the sign of the lion. In the case of Venus, the lioness. So there's a feminine quality to that fixed fire of Leo that very much correlates with the sun. Leo's connected with the sun. So this particular cycle is potent to discover what is the solar feminine and how do we move with nature? How do we return to something ancient and discover something new? This energy that we're in when the cycle starts, that chart that shows us what's happening with the planets in the sky, it's really this imprint that ripples for the entire 19 months, which is the entirety of the time that it takes her to move from this point where she meets the sun closest to the earth all the way behind the sun in about 9.5 months, and then all the way back to that return point being the closest between earth and sun every 19 months. Part of the ripple is this Leo energy, this energy of creativity, play, this energy of sovereignty, and that sovereignty coming from recovering our own creative power and bringing our child along the creator that we were before that conditioning kicked in. That is going to continue to be woven in no matter what sign Venus is in. Right now she's in Aquarius, she's in the opposite of that. They're weaving this story of this lioness that is inviting us into our sovereignty, inviting us to claim that, the warmth of our human heart in the cool of this digital revolution. As I time traveled through this cycle, I was just feeling the potency of it, feeling how it's really preparing us for something big in the spring of 2025, which is when it ends, kept coming back to the power of the women that I know who have crossed the threshold into 40 or 42. That's the marker into midlife, or 50 is the next one, and then 58. So there's these astrological events that happen at those 3 points. They bring us deeper into who we are. It's this natural maturation inspiration for those that have been on the path, that have been willing to discover who they are, been showing up to life in continuous learning and willingness to play deep and to really claim our power around that at a time when things feel so powerless. To me, that is the heroine's journey. It's that inner work to discover what is standing in my own way inside of me from my conditioning, from my stories, and how do I rewrite that story as heroine. The women who are crossing these thresholds, and for my own life, there is such activations. This is right at the time when this culture that is based on empire consciousness, dominator consciousness, tells older women that we're worthless and that we're not relevant anymore, that whatever, blah, blah, blah. We know what the messages are. We're not beautiful anymore, all those things. That is exactly the time when we have the most to offer, and that our voice and our stories and our perspective is the most needed. We are actually the new elders of this change that we're living through. This moment needs the wisdom of women that have been devoted to their path and devoted to being embodied beings on this planet at this incredibly stressful time. The first of the three thresholds happens around 40 or 42, when this planet Uranus, that represents unexpected, anything can happen kind of change, it comes to a position in our own personal astrology where it's halfway across the point that it was when we were born. This is called an opposition. So it's a Uranus opposition, because for it to go all the way around takes about 84 years. So we're halfway through that. And there's an electrification there at 40, 42, depends. There's an activation there that's a waking up. It's this electrical impulse. And if we haven't been on our path, that's sometimes the time when life shakes us and says, hey, this is what you're meant to do, not that. And so it can be a time of great change where things fall away, fall apart, and something new is born. Every single one of these thresholds has that potential, but particularly the midlife transit at 42 has an awakening quality, waking up to that deeper understanding of what we came to do and to align our lives to that. This is the time that has been labeled midlife crisis, because for those that are not paying attention, Uranus transits can be really disruptive. The energy wants to help us to shift, and that can happen very quickly and unexpectedly. But the greater goal is to get us going on the right track and to activate us. So that's the first. The second threshold happens at age 50 or 52 with this unusual planetary body called a centaur, Chiron. And Chiron is considered the wounded healer in the mythology. Chiron is about turning and tending to the wound that cannot be healed, what we can't fix, the suffering that we can't do anything about. Melanie Reinhart calls this the AntiHero, because the hero can fix it. The hero can go out in the world into the external, that would be Mars, and can do something about it. But the Chironic wound cannot be fixed, and it's excruciating. The Chiron wound really shows us our deepest wound of disconnection and allows us a chance to feel. That is the invitation, because if we can't fix it by going and heroically taking care of it, the other options drop in and feel. So Chiron has an intimate relationship with Venus because it puts our attention inside our feeling realm. That's where all the medicine is for the Venus journey, is through being willing to feel, being willing to be vulnerable. That's a very vulnerable position to be in, to have a wound that you can't heal no matter what you do. And in the Greek mythology of Chiron, he became a master healer because he couldn't heal his own wound. So he tried everything. And there was this sense of going into the cave, tucking in, which is very connected to the heroine's journey and very connected to the part of the heroine's journey that we call the underworld, when Venus disappears behind the sun. At the Chiron return, there's an opportunity to reconcile with what grieves us that we can't change, and to soften from that, to become more open from it instead of hardening. And we really see that as people get older, we see that choice being made, especially at these thresholds, either opening to life more in face of the hardships or closing down. And you can see the constriction in the body as people get older, if they start to crunch in or they really start to soften and shine more in who they are. uniquely, caring less about what others think, which is such a huge part of our conditioning, a huge part of this control system, and by design. So we have the waking up at the Uranus opposition, and then at the Chiron return, there's a deepening into our hearts. The next one that happens around 58 is our second Saturn return. And we had one at 29 or 30, and that brought us into adulthood. Saturn is very much about taking responsibility and growing up. What is our path? What am I here to do? What are my choices? How am I going to claim my authority as a young person? When we come back to that again for the second time, so Saturn has gone around and come back into that same place it was when we were born 2 times, then it's really a crystallization of our wisdom. There's a lucidity there. The Saturn return is a time of legacy and leaving behind, in some way, the wisdom that we've gleaned through our life. And one of the most powerful ways to do this is through story, to learn to be storytellers, to convey what's inside of us and to guide the next generations and to help people see what we're here to offer is the skill of this time. And what I'm seeing as I'm studying the business world and what's happening in entrepreneurship, I really see how this creator economy is coming, and it's coming fast through following some younger entrepreneurs who are already leveraging the power of the digital marketplace that opens up this possibility to connect with and exchange value with people all over the world. Pretty incredible when we sit and think about that. Of course, there's a dark side to technology. I was just re-listening to my presentation that I gave at a virtual retreat at the beginning of this Venus cycle. I was expressing that I felt wary of how the creativity online through social media could be extractive, especially of our unique ideas. I've really had some revelations about that in this cycle as we're preparing in the next couple months to shift into that underworld phase. I've learned some really interesting points that I'd like to share and open up this conversation about the coming creator economy and how important it is that women of wisdom are a part of that and are sharing their stories, but in a way that is not extractive and is not harmful, but is actually supportive. So if you want to join me, you're invited Saturday at noon, and I hope to see you there.